Hey, what's going on? This is Derek Crabb, picture-in-picture commentary for the history of comics on film. This piece is going to be on the Hanna-Barbera Fantastic Four cartoon, and I guess this is exciting for a lot of people because, like the Grant Trey Lawrence Marvel superheroes and the previous segment on Spider-Man, this is going into more Marvel comics and history, which is something a lot of people were looking forward to. This series I really like. I like Hanna-Barbera work. I grew up on the Super Friends, trying to make little connections to the Challengers of Unknown and Justice League because that's kind of how the Fantastic Four came about. There's the famous Stan Lee story about how he's talking to the editor of DC Comics. I think it was Martin O'Dell. But they were golfing or something, and he was bragging about how Justice League was selling so many copies, and Stan Lee was kind of like, oh, I can make a superhero book too, so he made the Fantastic Four. So this was made with Jack Kirby, and here's something that that I made with Premiere and what I'm trying to remember now because it's been a while since I used it other than here. Premiere and I can't remember now. It's another. I think it was like Adobe. Can't think of it. But anyway, so yeah, that was a special effect. Kind of adding the animated clip superimposed onto the live action clip. I think it turned out okay. I mean, it's not the greatest. I know there's still a little stuff around Ben Grimm's face and stuff. I tried my best. But yeah, hopefully it did the job serviceably and got the point across. But yeah, so references like that, the Reservoir Dogs reference was something I couldn't help but throw in. And then here, we've got the family, segment, I guess, of the Fantastic Four. Kind of playing up the whole brotherly conflict between Ben Grimm and Johnny Storm, and also dealing with, kind of like what I was saying before about Spider-Man. I wanted to sort of be as comprehensive with this group as I could, so I wanted to talk about all their equipment and where those first appeared. Before I went into the villains and things like that. But yeah, so here there's quite a bit of Fantastic Four villains on the series, and so I figured I'd go into all of them. But yeah, you've got the Mole Man, Claw, Molecule Man, Blastar, all these guys that Ben Grimm's about to clobber. And so, I started with the Mole Man and sort of went through some of his history. I guess I'll give a shout out to Superhero Shows, which is a really cool blog. And I'm gonna just say that style of the way he writes his blogs probably influenced some of the ways I like to cover guest stars and villain characters in my video segments. I like to, as he does in his writing, and when he posts pictures, he likes to sort of examine the history of different shows and different characters and follow them that way. And so I sort of applied that to my my videos with the villains. And so with guys like Diablo or the Mole Man, following them from not only the Hanna-Barbera series, but when they showed up on the World's Greatest Heroes or the New Fantastic Four or the 1994 series. So if they showed up on any of those series, it was, sort of tracing their lineage on film or television. And of course, this is what kind of reminded me of Rita Repulsa with Diablo getting dug up there. And probably because I watch a lot of Linkara's videos with the history of Power Rangers, which I think are pretty cool too. So I guess Rita was on my brain while I was making this. And then my dad really likes The Day the Earth Stood Still, and so that's, I guess, part of my lexicon too. But it's kind of pretty obvious that that the Planet X issue of Fantastic Four borrows heavily from The Day the Earth Stood Still. And so, yeah, and I mentioned this before, I think, in the Grant Trey Lawrence commentary, but I just revisited it again, where they had the, Despero-looking dude and the blue-skinned Prince Triton kind of serving as a substitute for Namor. I mean, they both the Hanna-Barbera episodes are, word for word and, panel for panel recreations sometimes of the actual Fantastic Four issues. You can even see in the I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong, but the indicia of the title cards. You can see if you put on your glasses and squint or whatever close enough. I don't wear glasses, but if you do squint close enough, and I talk about it later, you can actually see the issue numbers underneath each episode title. So you're kind of like, hey, if you want to know which Fantastic Four comic the Hanna-Barbera episode came from, if you look really close at the bottom, it'll tell you. And so the Skrulls, of course, are pretty heavily featured in almost I don't want to say all, but a good deal of Marvel cartoons, from Silver Surfer and the X-Men and everything. And there's a reference to the cow, which became really famous, and then the funny Skrull Kill Crew comics, where people ate the cows, and they had Skrull burgers, so they got superpowers, which is the brainchild of Grant Morrison, again, doing some wacky Grant Morrison trippy shit for your amusement. And then, of course, I guess this is background on Claw, with some Star Trek jokes, and later on maybe a little bit of editorialization on sort of how I feel about Reginald Hudlin's Black Panther, which I'm not a fan of. But I like the Christopher Priest Black Panther a whole lot. I thought that was a pretty cool series. But this one, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to get into it too much. Maybe I'll talk about it later on when I maybe cover the series or whatever. But I don't know. I'm not a fan. A little too much continuity, ignoring. Doesn't seem like he cares much about the characters to me. But, yeah, so this is kind of funny to me, too, because Secret Wars was where I first sort of was exposed or met Claw, and in most of the other comics, he's kind of this evil badass, but in Secret Wars, he was kind of a goofball who, I'm going to get in trouble for that, he's kind of a goofball who was playing patty cake with a lizard. It's funny, I probably wrote that in my first draft and then edited it, talking about Claw, but I didn't want to offend anybody, so I probably just did now. Oh well. Anyway, Jim Shooter, so this was more of a, the stuff with Jim Shooter was more of a divergence into his focus on omnipotent characters, and that sort of tied into Molecule Man. But yeah, I've always kind of liked books like Unity and the Secret War series and stuff like that. I was pretty happy with that. The Diablo and Galactus and Blastar to display the changes in the color schemes on the show. So yeah, that was something that I was pleasantly surprised with and happy that I could do there. And then also, making reference to Magneto here for a brief second with the super apes of the Red Ghost. Ah, Peoter, you magnetic monkey, you. But yeah, I think... Yeah, this was when I decided Warehouse 13 was cool, I think. When she was like, "Suck it, Magneto." Anyway, I always like stuff like that. But yeah, that's pretty much when I decided Warehouse 13 kicked ass. So yeah, props out to Warehouse 13. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. It's a cool sci-fi show. Of course, I'm a sucker for sci-fi. So get used to that. Yeah, and Blastar here, it's kind of funny because Blastar's a Kirby, it's very Kirby-esque design, but the color scheme, is kind of different in the comics. But when you look at him on not this new Fantastic Four episode, but the Hanna-Barbera version, it's very Calabac looking to me, more so than Blastar, because in the comics he's more grayed out and everything, so you don't see it right away. But the way they colored him in the Hanna-Barbera series, he looks just like Calabac. So here we go into a bit of backstory because Rama Tut shows up. So I decided, you know what? How often, I figured, am I going to get the chance to talk about Kang? So I figured, you know what? I might as well talk up Kang and Immortus and all these guys while I'm hitting Rama Tut. Because basically they're, I know there's different retcons and updates and everything, but they're definitely related, and in certain time periods they were considered the same guy, even though at some points Rama Tut was thought maybe to be Doctor Doom, or eventually in Avengers Forever they show how there's divergencies and Kang and Immortus sort of oppose each other, even though in other timelines they're like essentially the future versions of each other. I remember I was always big into Transformers the movie, and I would always make I'd make my own superhero version, but using the plot of Transformers the movie. So I did it once with the Marvel characters, and then I did it once with the DC characters. But when I did the Marvel version, it was like I had Doom as Megatron, leading all the supervillains against the blue area of the moon, because they had taken over Earth, I guess. When Doom fights with Adam Warlock, they get into a big fight, so it's supposed to be like Prime and Megatron. And then when Doom gets beat up, he goes to Galactus, and Galactus turns him into Kang, his herald. So that was kind of like my way of doing the whole Megatron Galvatron transition from my perspective in Marvel Comics. Even though, obviously Kang and Doom are two separate people, but they always alluded to the fact that they were possibly related or distant relatives or that kind of thing. And so that was kind of, at the time, I don't know, I must have been 15, because I was getting my driver's, what do they call it, the driver's permit. So it was a little bit before then, I think, but right around then I remember doodling and drawing those stories when I had breaks from going to a driver permit class or whatever. And then here's Silver Surfer, who's like my favorite Marvel character pretty much ever. Well, I guess I would say, like, obviously I really liked Spider-Man a lot, but he sort of lost his way with me after a certain point. After kind of him teaming up with Venom and going down the Maximum Carnage, Clonage, Year One, John Byrne, blah, all that kind of stuff. That kind of where it slowly waned and deteriorated for me. I still love shows like Spectacular Spider-Man. I think they're awesome. but not a huge fan of the Spider-Man movies except for the second one. So yeah, that's basically where it kind of dovetailed for me. So anyway, now back to the Silver Surfer though. I don't think, I mean, there was a period, basically I got into Silver Surfer kind of like I described in the video, but I stuck with it till somewhere in the 70s or 80s when they were doing the whole Herald thing with Morgue. So I stuck around till about then, and then I think once Ron Lim kind of left the book, and it kind of, I don't know, after that I stopped following it for a while, and then I think I picked it back up again when Ron Garney and Tom Grummett were doing the art, sort of on the tail end of that third volume. But yeah, this is a great scene, which I always liked. It's a Tarantino written script, Crimson Tide. So, and then you could also see how he's got the Silver Surfer poster in Reservoir Dogs in the back scene here. So you could tell, like, obviously, he knows his comics and stuff. He talks about Nick Fury and True Romance, even though they couldn't be bothered to get an actual Nick Fury comic book in the actual movie, which I think is a shame. It didn't have to be, the Howling Commandos comic book he's talking about, but I mean, it would have been cool if they could have at least gotten like a S.H.I.E.L.D. comic or something. But anyway, I guess for another blog, another time. But yeah, so now we're back to Doom, and I sort of covered Doom's first appearance in the Marvel Superheroes Namor segment. But here I could go more into depth about his origin and how they went into his background and the different Fantastic Four annuals, and then all the different Doctor Doom appearances on the Hanna-Barbera show. There's a lot of Doctor Doom appearances. He's their number one nemesis, and in some ways, he is almost the nemesis of the entire Marvel universe because he's pretty much fought everybody. From Doctor Strange to the X-Men to Spider-Man to the Avengers to whoever, if you name the guys, Doom's probably fought with them. Dazzler, like a bunch of people. I guess Doom is probably one of the best Marvel villains. And I think it's a shame that he really doesn't come across very well in the Fantastic Four movies, unfortunately. But he's done pretty well in this animated series. This also was something that I kind of messed around with in Photoshop. It's a sketch from Jack Kirby Collector, and I was able to color it myself. Hopefully, it looks pretty good on film. People can tell me what they think, either by comments or emails or things like that. But anyway, I really dug that sketch and think that it speaks volumes about how Jack Kirby intended Doom to be. And then, of course, you can't make do a piece on Doom without sort of making that connection to Darth Vader. And in the 1981 series, man, does he sound like Darth Vader. And of course, this video game was pretty awesome. I had a fun time playing it with friends. I had a fun time being Thor and Silver Surfer. And Doom's great in it. I mean, he's a great villain, and it's pretty awesome CGI cutscenes. So I figured I had to include that too. Also, a lot of the Hanna-Barbera stuff was designed by Alex Toth, who did Space Ghost. I guess I'm kind of talking over myself here. But yeah, I dig Space Ghost. It's pretty cool. I was never big into Coast to Coast or anything, but I like the original series. And here I'm kind of referencing other interpretations, whether they be parodies or serious versions of Fantastic Four. I know some people get into big arguments with me over this, but I always thought The Incredibles was a rip-off of Fantastic Four. That's kind of how I feel about it. I think it sucks that it came out before the movie did, because I think it messed that up. That's just my opinion. My understanding is there were rewrites after that movie came out, so I blame Incredibles partially. Yeah, oh yeah, here's what I was talking about with the issue number. So you can see, like, oh, for Marvel Comics, it's issue number 7 or issue number 11 or what have you. So anyway, thank you for watching. So yeah, okay, this is the second video where I had some video in the credits. This is just me goofing around, which is going to be kind of weird because I guess you'll see a picture of me over a picture of me at this point. I'm just thinking about that now. But yeah, I basically was trying to create a break because I record the audio on my camcorder now because I like the way it sounds better. Before I had a Logitech mic, and a lot of people complained about the sound and stuff, and my levels and stuff. I still don't know that it's the most brilliant level, but I do like using this video camera a lot better than using the Logitech mic. But anyway, what I would do is kind of just put the lens cap on, record the audio, and upload it. But here I was making a break between Spider-Man and Fantastic Four, so I took off the lens cap. Anyway, long-winded explanation. So yeah, thanks for watching.